Hi everyone, I'm Carrie Perry.
And I'm Flora Pastorero, and this is Chick to Chick. Fun here a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes we have to tackle serious issues, and this podcast today is in fact tackling a very serious issue, and I find it to be a heartbreaking issue as well.
It's a heartbreaking issue because it's not just affecting a person, it's affecting a generation above and below them, and we're talking about the opioid crisis. So this is a very heavy topic, but it's one that is very well discussed out there, talked about, and we're going to talk with someone today that's going to add much more value to the conversation as well.
Yeah. It's not just the opioid crisis, but the opioid crisis and the impact that it's having on family members. And what we're talking about specifically, the number of young people who are dying from heroin overdoses and overdoses of other drugs, and then the grandparents end up raising the grandchildren. And I need to call this up on my phone here because I can't see anything, but this is kind of alarming. Nationwide, 2.7 million grandparents. I'm going to say that again. 2.7 million grandparents are raising their grandchildren, and that is up 7% since 2009. That's how dramatically this has gone up in the last 10 years. Wow. Experts say this trend is likely to continue as the nation responds to the opioid epidemic, military deployments, and this was alarming to me, a growth in the number of women who are incarcerated. All of this is leading to more and more grandparents raising their grandchildren. 2.7 million across this country.
That's astounding, and I just think that it is so difficult to understand what these families are going to go through. And today we're really kind of blessed because we have a woman who's going to share her heartache. She has a story that no parent wants to be able to tell. But we have Jackie Murphy with us today, and unfortunately, Jackie lost her daughter to heroin, but fortunately, her daughter left behind a beautiful boy that Jackie is raising along with her husband. Jackie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate you doing this podcast on the opioid crisis and also giving me a chance to tell my story, and hopefully it will help some other families out there to know it's okay, and we're here to support you. So I thank you. I thank you for doing this.
We want to thank you for being so courageous and coming forward and telling this story. So Jackie, tell us what happened. What was going on with your daughter?
Well, my daughter was a good girl. She really was. She was a good kid. At about the age of 14, we caught her with pot. She was never into pills. It wasn't the typical stereotype. Danielle was a cheerleader. She was an AB student in school. I mean, she could have had it all. Sadly, her friends and her started, I guess, experimenting with heroin. They used to snort it. One of her friends finally talked her into letting them inject her. And around the age of 15, 16, she became an addict.
That is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. I mean, it affects the family, not just the addict. Mm-hmm. I mean, my family, we were falling apart. The rug underneath was just being pulled out from under our feet. We put her in programs. I've had her in rehab twice. We even moved, not mainly because of her, but we felt it would give her a fresh start. She could finish out high school in a new school, new friends, and sadly it didn't work that way. And at the age of 30, on January 21st, 2018, my daughter overdosed on a fentanyl overdose.
So sorry,
He was
Jackie.
a 2.5-year-old little boy, my grandson, who is the light of my life. He actually spent 3 months in the NICU. As strange as this may be sound to say, his belly didn't close at his belly button. So his bowel was on the outside. And that was actually a blessing in disguise because she did use during her pregnancy. And he was immediately put onto fentanyl. So my grandson never went through withdrawals like other children do who are born addicted. And that is horrible. Horrible to watch that little one lay there and cry in pain from withdrawing from heroin. We basically had him. He came home to my husband and I, and we basically raised him from birth. He's the light of my life. He's what saved me. You know, losing any loved one is difficult. But when it's a child, I can tell you, it's changed me. I will never be the same again. On that day, part of me died. And if it wasn't for that little boy, I honestly don't know where I would be. When my daughter passed away, 4 months pregnant. So not only did I lose a daughter, but I lost my second grandchild.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like a double. Yeah.
So tragic, so tragic, so horrible. No parent should ever have to go through this. No parent should ever have to bury a child. But as you pointed out, thank goodness that you have your grandson. And Jackie, I guess this drug, this demon was so powerful. You said you tried to get your daughter help, and the demons won. The demons won in this case.
No, and that's the sad thing. Most people, even myself, couldn't understand. She was a good mom. She loved that little boy to death, but not enough. The drug won. She was clean for 10 months. And an addict doesn't need an excuse for whatever reason triggered her. She did, and sadly, that was it. That was the end for her.
So my question for you would be what it is like as a grandparent to then have to go into that space of not just raising your grandson, but legally, and what happens with the rights and all of that. Was that yet another battle for you to be able to then take on? You said it took quite a while for you to fully adopt your grandson. So I mean, what's that process like? There's got to be other grandparents out there that are concerned they're going to be in the same space or in it. So maybe talk to us about that.
Sure. Well, it was a long, frustrating process because children and youth are all about re-education. And it's so hard because my daughter, she could manipulate anybody. And that's most addicts. Most addicts can do that. And my grandson's father was the same way. And they're still all about putting the child back with the parents. And it was a battle from day one, fighting with them, going to court. We were in court every 6 months as a permanency review. We had to end up after my daughter passed away. And my daughter would fight for him. Like I said, she really loved him, but they were in no position or able to take care of him. But when she passed away, we still had to go through and terminate Dad's rights, which took another 9 months. And finally, Dad's rights were terminated. And then the adoption process followed within about a 2-month period.
Jackie, as we pointed out, 2.7 million grandparents are raising their grandchildren. So many other grandparents in the same situation as you are. What message do you have for others who are going through this?
Oh, hang in there. It's hard. None of us are young anymore. I had my kids in my 20s. You know, we're all getting older, but there are support groups. There are people out there. And that's why I'm so grateful for you guys doing this podcast. Last year, I had found a group, they're called Grands. And what it is we get together once a month. And you can talk openly. You can talk freely. And the nice thing is, we all understand because we're raising our grandchildren, or we've lost a young loved one to an addict. So there's no pointing fingers. There's no judgment. You can just sit and talk. And it's so nice because I think people fear that yet today. You know, you tell them, oh, I lost my daughter. And they say, oh, I'm so sorry. How did she die? She overdosed. And they don't know what to say to you. So there is a group. We meet once a month on Tuesdays at the YWCA in Carlisle. It's the first Tuesday of each month from 6 to 7. And we really want to get the message out. There are other groups out there, ROC, which is Residents Against Heroin. It's just support where you can go. My husband is so grateful. I attend these meetings because it lets you get out your frustration, and it lets you talk, and it also helps you heal, you know, because somebody else, sometimes just listening, you don't feel alone, you know, so we really need to get this out. We need to start talking, and sadly, we need to start talking about all this because it's, like you said, 2.7 million grandparents. Yeah. I mean, there are so many kids. We're still in the foster system. We're foster parents.
Jackie, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for being so honest and open, and for being here with us today.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Thank you.
You're just inspirational.
Like I said, if we can reach just one family, one person, you know,
it's worth it.
Will make a difference.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jackie.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And we appreciate it as well. Yeah. I think that's what's so important. We have to have the conversation. We have to talk about it. This is a real problem that's happening in this country. So many young people. Every other day I see in the obituary a young life lost.
I lost my brother. He didn't die with a needle, but he died because he was a heroin addict and it got to his heart. And even though he was in recovery, I mean, I get it. Yeah. I understood what Jackie was saying. There aren't any grandkids that my mom has to care for. But it is not okay what's happening. And people like Jackie who are creating a better conversation for people who are like hiding away from this. I mean, that's how we're going to help move the needle and help the people that are in the trenches and picking up the pieces, right?
Indeed. We have to talk about it.
We do. Well, on that note, I know it was a heavy one.
Yes.
But thank you. Thank you for listening. Thanks so much for tuning in to Chick to Chick. We really appreciate it. You can always find us across social media. We're on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and of course, chicktochick.com. All right, Flora, until another time, right?
Yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will be back soon to chirp about another topic.